And all right. Well, welcome to week 4 waiver wire show. I am out NFL outdated, and
And I am Uneducated Takes. How is it going out there, everybody?
I think everyone's excited. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about. Injuries that happened. Obviously, we've got some priority waiver wire takes, but we've also got some things we like to talk about. Between obviously Broncos, Jets. A lot of surprises, right?
But yeah, a couple of games to talk about. Not always the most popular one, though. We are going to talk about the fun one. We're definitely going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Packers and the 49ers, but we're going to start it off easy because I want to admit to being wrong and I want to admit to being right at the same time. So we're going to talk about the Broncos Jets because I was pretty dead wrong on the Jets so far. To be fair, little nipped in the butt by injury, a little injury
Mm-hmm.
bug over there. But yeah, they are just a disaster. Bad play calling, bad players. Just it's all going downhill. A couple injuries on the offensive line. Wilson doesn't stand a chance back there. It's going to be a mess, and their play calling is much like I'm sure you were used to watching the Bears this weekend, was not playing to the strength of their players, which
Oh,
is just super frustrating as a fan. Like I've seen it happen. My Vikings do it all the time, but it has been 12 personnel with, so they're doing a running back with 12 personnel. That's one running back, two tight ends, two wide receivers. Right? It's one of the, I mean, it's fine if you can do it, right? But they can't. They can't do it. They don't have good tight ends. They don't have a good running back, and they have a terrible run blocking offensive line. So I was wrong. I thought they would be better. They looked so good in the preseason. Like it was crisp. Wilson was hitting the passes, but
yeah.
they're crumbling under poor personnel and poor play calling on the offensive side of the ball.
So yeah, I mean, what are you seeing? Like, obviously with the Bears, they talk about obviously, he didn't do well at all, but a lot of it
No.
was on the play calling and
Yeah.
trying to maybe get him to roll out of the pocket, just get him to make plays on the run, and the Bears offense just was not set up to do that. I mean,
No.
is that
No.
what would help Zach Wilson? You know,
Well, it would help Zach Wilson, I suppose. Man, it's hard to say because it's not quite so bad as what the Bears did to Fields this weekend. That was a massacre. That was a throwing to the slaughter of a good prospect. The Bears need to run a little RPO, a little more RPO. They need to get
Mhm.
him looking at half the field and firing. They need to get him moving. They, like you said, they need to get him in some rollouts. But no, they're just having him take the drop with a normal protection with no help from like tight ends or running backs, and they're just getting trucked. And
You,
you can see he's trying to do the Andy Dalton thing. You can see him processing. He's like read, 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 but
yep.
it's just like if you haven't been doing it for years, it's not going to come naturally. That's not his skill set. So it's just like why are you doing this? It would be like if they tried to have Lamar Jackson play an Andy Dalton's game, right? It's
Right.
like why are you doing that? Do
Well,
you not
yeah,
like winning?
and a lot of that's it's on the coaching staff, and they talk
Yeah,
about that, and
yeah,
even the scheme as you talked about. There was even a note that the scheme doesn't adjust to the lineman's strengths. That's the big thing on Chicago Sports Talk Radio.
yeah,
Is you got like a
yeah,
40-year-old lineman, Jason Peters. You got these linemen.
yeah,
And they're just their strengths aren't being utilized, and obviously Justin Fields' strength is not being utilized either. But then it was also it went back to how the scheme, which was the Chiefs scheme, right, and how it didn't even adjust in the Super Bowl, and obviously that's when you saw a lot of that happen as
yeah.
well. And even though they had all of these new offensive linemen, the Chiefs did, they didn't adjust. And it's so interesting now that Nagy is taking that to the Bears, and you just don't want
Yeah,
Justin
yeah.
Fields to really be ruined by them not looking at his strengths and the strengths of the linemen in front of him. They're supposed to protect him.
Yeah, I mean, any quarterback's ruinable, and this you see him kind of across the league right now. None of the rookie quarterbacks are doing that well. I'm not saying they're all being ruined, but Justin Fields and Zach Wilson are being ruined right now. Right? We need to get Zach Wilson on some bootlegs like they did in the preseason. You can run the ball with three wide receivers. You do not need to use two tight ends, especially when you don't have two reliable tight ends. The Jets don't have it. And they don't really even have with their offensive line beat up the way it is, they don't even really have the personnel to be pounding the rock. Like, it's going to have to change, or it's going to be, I don't see very many wins on their schedule. There's maybe three arguably winnable games on the Jets schedule right now, and that would be the Texans, and I think they play the Jaguars, and they have the Falcons coming up. Right. Those are. Yeah. No, the Bears already ruined Mitch. I 100% agree. No, I'm kidding. It's coming in on the chat there.
No. That was kind of the joke that if the Bears had drafted Patrick Mahomes, that this year he would be the backup for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, that's reasonable, right? We can all apologize to Mitch Trubisky maybe. Because he needed to be in read options too. Half field reads, good legs, but no, it's just a sad story, and you hate to see it because I was looking forward to seeing this Jets team play. It looked like they were going to be fun. I liked the way Saleh was looking. I liked the way that offense was cooking in the preseason, but it's just not happening. Though one of the teams that I was a little bit right on is their opponent from this last weekend who cleaned their clock, and that's Teddy Bridgewater, my boy, and the Denver Broncos, right?
Yeah.
And that I was one of the few in favor, I feel like, of that transition, of that move to Teddy. Because Teddy's going to win you some football games, all right? We're trying to, as a coach and a GM, it's hard to, you don't get to have the long view very often, especially when you haven't been a winning franchise recently. So it's hard to argue with trying to win football games today, right? As fans, we have zero skin in the game beyond our own passion, right? We don't have like our careers and like our entire livelihoods on the game. So we are afforded this lengthy view where we can be like, well, what's best for the long term? They don't get to do that, and so they played Teddy Bridgewater, and that was the right move because he's winning games. And sure, he had the combined winning record against of 0-9, right? No one who they've played has won a game, but they've also beaten the crap out of those teams, right?
Right.
Like, and they have contributed to those teams not winning games by just handling business, and that's what Teddy B is going to do. Bridgewater is going to beat bad teams if he has a decent roster. It's fine. Like, he's gonna find who's open. He's gonna get it out. He's not gonna tank the game. He's good under pressure, and that's one thing that I'm worried about going forward on that Broncos line is they are allowing almost as bad as the Jets are allowing, actually. So the Jets are allowing 38%, 38.5 pressure rate from the interior, which is bananas. The worst last year was my Vikings at like 30. But the Broncos are up there too at 31% pressure from the interior, and they're going to start playing some legit pass rushing teams, right? Not necessarily as bad up the middle, but they're playing the Browns, they're playing the Steelers. Like, how does that line hold up end to end? Teddy Bridgewater has shown us that he can win with a poor offensive line as long as the roster is good and the defense is good. He did it in 2015-16, but I'm not sure they can hold on to it. I want them to hold on to it because they're a competent team. I like that team. I like their players. I love Teddy Bridgewater. I have shares in a lot of their players. But yeah, I'm not sure how confident I am going forward in their win-loss record and honestly in some of their fantasy pieces.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is it sustainable? In that. You just never know with the Broncos. Obviously, Vic Fangio, heavily involved in the defense, and they've got some great wide receivers. But it really, obviously, with all of the franchises, how well is the quarterback play going to be? And Bridgewater is a quarterback. Even as a Bears fan, when he was with the Vikings, he's just someone you want to root for, right?
Everyone loves him.
Yeah, and especially with what happened, his injury, and so that's a good story there. And obviously they had KJ Hamler got hurt.
KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy both down, which does hurt a lot.
It does, but interestingly enough, obviously Cortland Sutton, has been balling out as far as fantasy wise, and Noah Fant.
Yeah, he felt to me as kind of like a whatever pick, right? Noah Fant in the draft, I feel like, was just in that group of like Tyler Higbee, Gesicki, and Noah Fant. And I ended up with Fant more often than not because he was often the last one to go from that group, and like I didn't care too much between them. But it's seeming like that was going to be one of the value picks of the draft, especially at tight end, where it's hard to find value outside the top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So I'm very comfortable with rolling with him going forward because Teddy's going to get him the ball. Right, he's going to get catches. He's averaging over 6 targets a game already, and we just lost KJ Hamler, who was one of Teddy's favorite receivers.
I just obviously I watched Noah Fant, at Iowa and everything. And how about this? Hawkinson and Noah Fant were on the same Iowa team,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so tight end right?
Tight end and no lineman.
Exactly. So, obviously that is definitely something to watch. The for the Broncos, you got, the running backs. What do you make of that?
So I make that I'm very lucky that I had Williams on the bench in a league or two, because I lost Henderson this week in a couple of leagues, and that's a fine backfield. Like I'm comfortable starting either one, and I think they're gonna produce on a good enough level, right? I would rather kind of start Williams for the upside, to be honest.
Yep.
I would rather start Williams. I have been starting Williams, and I'm gonna continue after this last week where it kind of paid off. Right, that's a good flex or wide receiver 2 option. If you have, is it Javonte? I think it's
Javonte. Yep.
Yeah, if you have Javonte Williams, I just go by Jay Williams. If you have him, I feel great starting him going forward. It's going to be some gnarly defenses, but I mean, if you're hurting, you're hurting, and you need a third running back, you could do a lot worse. Like
And let's go into that. Obviously, our waiver wire pickups, for this week, we've got a lot of, running backs going down so far this year. And obviously with Christian McCaffrey going down for, I think they said a few weeks. So obviously one of the main waiver wire pickups that everybody's talking about is
going to be Chubba Hubbard.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's definitely, one that, everyone's kind of talking about. And obviously that's going to be, number one waiver wire priority. Some other ones that obviously we'd like to talk about as well. Obviously when I'm doing my waiver wire, searching through, I always look for value, and, the goal is to not have the number one priority, right? Because if you have the number one priority, you're not doing so well, right?
Yeah, it does depend. If you're 3-0 right now, I'm comfortable having the number one priority, right? But if you're struggling right now, you should have already been using it. You should have been using it to pick up the Hunter Renfrow, who's still available and had an even better game. You're using it to pick up, like we said last week. Who did we say last week? It was Hunter Renfrow and. What was the other wide receiver?
Oh yeah, well obviously we did KJ Hamler, but
KJ Hamler, unfortunate, so that was a miss. But you can't.
Right.
No, but you should have been using your priority already. And if you get close, like a top 3, top 4, top 5, you just burn the thing, right? Because you're gonna save it for a player that's never coming, and you're gonna end up using it on like a tight end when your guy gets injured in week 8 anyway. And like it doesn't like it's not like it it's value. It's losing value to not use it, right? Because you're gonna end up getting it back anyway. Just get up in the top half again, easy, right? If you use the number one waiver, like you could easily work your way back up. And I would be expending, how much fab would you spend on Hubbard if you needed a running back? If you're like, ooh, I need a running back to win this week. What percentage?
So I've actually done most of the ones I've done. Don't have any money or numerical value attached.
I'm not a big fab guy either. I think I'm in one that has it. Yeah.
It really depends. I wouldn't put a ton on it, because obviously if you get him, you get a starter for, 2-3 weeks or whatever. Because obviously, Christian McCaffrey is not going on IR, so they're not really sure how long he's going to be gone. I did watch him, that Thursday night game, and he didn't look. Obviously, he's not Christian McCaffrey, right? But he didn't look all that well, but he obviously, definitely serviceable, and maybe that the game plan would be for him, maybe he would look better. So I don't know what your thoughts are on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a volume play. Wide receiver 3 running back 3 if you're desperate, right? Running back 2 if you're really desperate, or if you had McCaffrey, right? I blew my waiver priority on it, which was like, I don't know, it was like 5 or 6, something like that. Like, hey, I
Yeah.
would I would blow my waiver priority on it for sure. See, that's the type of thing that you take the value now if you need it. If you don't need it, sure, just pick someone up off free agency like Renfro or Terrence Marshall or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you do need a player and you need to win this week, blow your priority and, just put a little 20% bid on them, right? Because wins week 3, 4, and 5, like, if you stack them up early, you can get away with some stuff late when the bye weeks start coming, especially, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so some other, waiver wire, pickups. Obviously, try to go with some different ones. A lot of people want to focus on like Peyton Barber, but what I really like, is I like what Jacoby Brissett did. Just how he carried himself, and obviously,
Mm-hmm.
Tua's going to be out for a little bit here, and Jacoby Brissett, with that running touchdown, and I liked what he did.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'm grabbing him. I mean, so that's a free agent grab unless you're in a super flex, right? If you're in a
Yep.
super flex, then you're spending for it a little bit. If not, just wait for the waivers to clear, pick him up, and
Absolutely.
honestly, that's a little bit of how many points did he pull this week? All right, it was an okay start, right?
I
It
thought
was
it
like
was
in the 20s or
19.
something like
Yeah,
that.
19,
Yeah,
20. Yeah.
yeah. So that's a little bit of a desperation play
Hmm.
especially with players like Kirk Cousins, who's been
That's a good one too.
throwing, yeah,
Yep.
and
Yep.
other quarterbacks who are actually going off, right, who don't necessarily run, so that does hurt. But I would say Superflex, pick them up, ride them for a couple weeks, kick them to the curb, no problem.
Yep.
I also, in another league, I put my priority in on Cousins. Just because I've been streaming quarterbacks, threw Jones in this week, it went okay, won the matchup, no big deal. All right, to the curb. Next, I don't need my ninth waiver priority, right? So let's throw it on Kirk Cousins. Make sure no one else gets him because he's popping off right now.
That's the thing. Yeah. I really like in the draft, I really like to prioritize running backs and wide receivers, obviously the skill positions, and I tend to get a little bit, further down on quarterbacks because that there are going to be some, obviously Kirk Cousins has the weapons there and he's just
Mm-hmm.
really been putting that together. Obviously, I would have to say he's been underappreciated in the Vikings by the Vikings fans. On outsider looking in, right?
Yeah, no, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
do you feel like you can really kind of enjoy that success right now, or is it?
Well, I'm kind of what times in 2021 being so dichotomous, right? I am on the Kirk hater side of the spectrum, though I don't really hate Kirk Cousins. He's a fine quarterback. I think he's been fine the whole time he's here, and I don't blame the failures of the team on him. Not that he didn't play his own part, but I am enjoying it immensely because he's playing out of his mind. But I want to remind everyone, and this is a great ride. Oh, you love seeing Kirk sling the ball around. You just love it because he's like the least athletic. He's like backpedaling like Mahomes and throwing it on the fall over on a crossing route to KJ Osborne. Who you also should have probably already picked up by now on your free agent
Mhm.
wire. Don't spend your fab, don't spend your priority
Mhm.
on him. But I would like to remind everyone that it's never started the season like this for Kirk Cousins, but every single year of the last, I want to say five years of his career, he's had a 5-6 year career. The last 5 years of his career, he has played this good for a stretch of 3 to 6 games every single year. There is not one year in that span where he didn't play this good. So at this point, is this part of the Kirk coaster, right? And this is where we're talking about streaming. Like if you're picking up Kirk, just keep in mind you're going to be dropping him week 8 probably because it's just it always seems to eventually come crashing down. Now I want to see him just ascend and be top 4 quarterback in the NFL as much as anyone else. But it just has never happened, and we have such a consistent track record of the exact same thing happening that just keep in mind if you're picking up Kirk, you're picking up Kirk to stream Kirk for a week or two, and if you get super lucky, yeah, you ride him for the rest of the season. But don't rest on that.
And speaking of Kirk, what about his tight end mate there? Obviously, with Irv Smith going
Conklin?
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tyler Conklin. Yeah. He'll be okay. It's a desperation play for sure.
Mhm.
If your tight end isn't working out, people have dropped Gesicki, which is kind of weird. They shouldn't drop him if you have him, because who are you going to pick up, right? Tyler Conklin, you can, but Irv Smith is going to come back eventually. It's So it's like a circle of trust thing with Kirk, right? If you are open and he will throw you the ball. His circle of trust is very large, and it's, are you open right now? That's all it takes. We know that because he threw Treadwell the ball over and over and over again,
Treadwell,
and just
right?
let the ball sail through his arms over and over again,
Yeah,
right? But he was open, so he threw him the ball. It's kind of is admirable, really. It's like a magnanimous schoolyard quarterback, just getting everyone involved. No, but I think it's a decent desperation play. He's been getting targets. He's been getting catches. If it's in standard, you're going to be disappointed. But I don't know. You might snipe a touchdown. He's going to get his targets because Kirk will spread the ball out, especially on the late downs when we just need to get a first down. He will find Conklin, and Conklin has been really decisive in his movements. He's been catching the ball. He's been getting upfield for like 10 yards, falling forward for 3 or 4. Like a good tight end should. And that's valuable, and that's a good way to kind of bridge the gap if you're floundering at the tight end position. Maybe you want to bench Gesicki for a week. Don't drop him. Carrying two tight ends is a pain, but if you want to bench him for a week because you're not sure, maybe you want to drop him in a week or two because it's not working out with Brissett, right? But I think Conklin is a okay waiver wire pickup if you're desperate.
Yeah, and that's the thing with tight ends. I think beyond the top few, it is kind of a wasteland, or it's kind of a just try to figure out, try to guess sometimes depending on what defenses they're playing. So yeah, I do like to carry the 2 tight ends, just in case, and
Okay. You go against the grain of a lot of conventions, don't you? Because you like to carry a couple defenses and a couple tight ends, right?
I do, and those are the positions that I tend to like stream, and because I really in my drafts focus on some of the obviously the running backs and the wide receivers that I don't get. I just never get a George Kittle. I never get a Travis Kelce. Obviously they're fantastic, but I would rather focus a little bit more on some of the obviously running backs. When they go down, and I'm in a 14 team league, and it's just a wasteland.
There's nothing.
I had someone throwing me Lamar Jackson and one other player for James Robinson. That's how
that's
desperate. So we talked about circle of trust, and there's a player it's so weird. He's on a new team. He's kind of back in the circle of trust. We didn't quite see this coming. Not everybody saw this coming. AJ Green.
Yeah, and AJ Green is another player I was super wrong on last year. I was kind of low key targeting the stack of Green and Burrow last year because you could get him at the end of the draft, and it was just like, a fun little stack, right? Get Burrow and then the 10th and like Green in the 12th, right? And that was terrible. But yeah, I was actually disappointed. Green got a lot of targets last year that just didn't connect. Right, on kind of like those 60-40 plays, it fell on the 40%. It felt like more than it ought to have with a player like Green. And now he's getting those targets again, and he's proven that he's at least still a good wide receiver. And a good wide receiver in a just outrageous offense with a quarterback that can just sling in any direction at any point. I'm on AJ Green, and I'll throw him on the bench if I have a guy down. I'll throw him wide receiver 3, no problem. Decent flex play, right? So I would consider giving up priority, not like top priority, but I'd probably give up maybe put like a couple dollar fab bid on, or like maybe if I was already low on the priority, I might. But I'd probably try to pick him up as a free agent, to be honest.
Yeah, because a lot of people were throwing money at Rondale Moore, right? And he's had it's just that offense, and it's so. I like to see the younger quarterbacks doing well. I like to see Kyler Murray doing well, and that offense is just they're humming. So
yeah, absolutely. Do you think Marlon Mack gets traded?
So yeah, that just kind of came out today that mutually agreed upon that him and the Colts want to seek a trade. Obviously, he was a healthy scratch this past week. I do think he gets traded, and there's some really kind of juicy places that
big time.
If
he ends up in San Francisco.
Oh, absolutely. And that could really push them,
Yeah. He's a good runner. He's a fine NFL running back, right? Just as good as almost any of them. Not the best of the best, but he will get it done in a good system.
Yeah. And so that could be what the Niners need to do something. Obviously, they've got these injuries.
Yeah.
Elijah Mitchell. I'm not sure if he's going to come back. Is Trey Sermon really the answer there?
Didn't look
Um,
very good. Looked pretty slow, to be honest. And I have him in multiple leagues because I always grab like a backup Niners running back as long as Shanahan is the coach. I'll just quick grab like someone on their depth chart at the end of a draft or a free agency because you never know when they become, the best player of the week for a week or two, right? And that's the way you skate by. But yeah, it would be Marlon Mack would tear it up in
yeah,
that run game. There's a couple other places he could go, probably less desirable. Where else are we thinking?
yeah. Obviously, you've got the Ravens.
Oh
And
yeah, the Ravens could use
you
him.
know that's the thing. I think he would want to go to winner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it just doesn't make sense to him to go to the Jets, right? That backfield's a mess,
No,
and
no.
that just to get a start.
Yeah,
So,
might get paid with the Jets. Some
oh
they
yeah,
might they might screw up and pay him.
like they paid Le'Veon Bell, so why
Yeah,
not?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. I really I was watching that Packers Niners game, and
Mm-hmm.
I Jimmy Garoppolo, he is just terrible. Like, I mean, he'll make the throws right, but he
Yeah.
just that one of those last plays that he was trying to get rid of it, and he threw it a lateral, and it was a fumble, and then that ended up
Mm-hmm.
being the points that actually
Mm-hmm.
was the difference, other than the amazing field goal, right? You
Yeah,
know,
it was an exciting game. Yeah, yeah.
so with that, I just and I haven't seen a lot of Trey Lance, but I do think that it's going to be his job pretty soon. So I would, I like to be ahead of the curve and just think of those
Yeah.
players, that maybe you're, on the waiver wire, because you don't. The worst thing you can do is wait too long for the waiver wire, because then
Yeah.
then you'll miss out, And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so if you've got a roster spot that you can just kind of do a speculative ad, whether it's him or Jacoby Brissett, that might be one, or whatnot. Just kind of have that extra spot to say, okay, well, I'm going to guess. It, like a lot of people guess with Justin Fields, and I think I said in last week I was not ready. Justin Fields, he would be a good one to maybe have on the bench. Um, After seeing what with the coaching staff and the play calling, um, I would drop him in,
Yeah,
in
you
my
would rather
eyes.
have Trey Lance right now, right? If you're gonna
Absolutely.
have the speculative rookie, I mean, I have Wilson sitting on a bench somewhere. I'll probably find someone to replace him with, and Trey Lance might be. A lot of people did draft him. He got picked up just because a lot of hype, and the
Yep.
49ers are they score points, right? And he's a
Yep.
running quarterback, so a lot of people did end up drafting him. But that's the kind of person on the waiver wires that you can get because maybe you don't have the top priority, and this is why it doesn't always matter. But someone's taken Marlon Mack with that.
Yep.
someone's taken a more desirable piece with that than a quarterback. So that's one thing you can kind of slip through. I would not wait for waivers on him, honestly. I would probably blow my priority on that, depending on how your team's set up and how you want to go about it. Right? Do you want to carry two quarterbacks? Do you have the roster space for that? But I would feel fine about it. Yeah, that was a tough game. Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh, it was a brilliant game overall, though. A lot of fun to watch, and Aaron
It was
Rodgers
fun.
dropping the dime against prevent defense. Like,
Oh
why does
yeah,
anyone ever play prevent defense? It never works. He just threw it. He threw it into prevent defense, and it still
he did.
worked, right? So it didn't even prevent the thing. It just, normally the knock on prevent is they just go under and get a field goal, right? But now he went over and got a field goal. So now what are you doing? You might as well just play the game straight up. But yeah, wow,
Yeah.
what a game! Yeah, that Jimmy fumble hurt real bad.
It did, and so and really, I think he got bailed out by George Kittle on a couple of those. He had some good throws, but George Kittle really had the extra tough run,
Always
and
does.
and obviously that's my guy, Iowa guy, and you like to see that, and what it comes down to, some of these speculative ads. Yeah, do you trust the coaching staff,
Hmm.
and the Niners coaching staff? They have proven that they can, offensively do something. And,
Yeah.
it comes back to the Bears, you just don't, trust, I think Fields he has the talent, but, can you match it in an offensive system that's going to highlight his gifts?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I would rather have the wide receiver two on the 49ers than Allen Robinson. Right? Allen Robinson's an
Right?
incredible wide receiver, but
He is.
you just he's going to get shut down
Yep.
because that offense is inept, right? And if your player gets the nod on the 49ers, right, you are going to get points out of that player. It's almost guaranteed, right? And
Hmm.
it's hard to figure out who's going to get the start. That is kind of the trick, right? Because they're always injured and like their wide receivers kind of get mixed around a lot, right? But if you have a starting player on the 49ers, just start him. You're going to get
Absolutely.
points. Start him in the flex.
Absolutely.
At very least, you're going to get points. No matter if it's the running back, tight end, either wide receiver one, wide receiver two, you're fine. Go for it.
Speaking of wide receivers, and another speculative ad, and this is, obviously, I probably have to talk to some more, knowledgeable on the Colts, and
Mm.
but T.Y. Hilton may be coming back, and obviously, does he still have it? He's been a talent in the league. If he's coming back, um, he could be a big play. He could not. Obviously that's some. If you've got an extra spot, that's why I kind of throw that on there. You look at players that are coming back that might make an impact, and he has in the past. The question is, does he have the rapport with the quarterback? And, obviously, is he that number one wide receiver that he once was?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. One thing that we do know for sure. I'm just checking the schedule here. So the Colts play the Texans on October 17th, which is in 3 weeks, and you do want T.Y. Hilton on your roster for that. So if you
Love
don't pick
that.
him up this week, definitely pick him up next week because
Yeah,
you'll probably win the week in October because
that's a good
it's
call.
kind of a meme, right? But it's like
Yeah,
outrageous, like it's so consistent that it's hard to. We have nothing but him torching the Texans for his entire career. So it's like, all right, well, you might as well do it until he stops, especially at the low opportunity cost of a flex or wide receiver three. I would. Oh boy,
are you going to do
if
the
it,
Ty? Ty, you going to do that?
I don't know the dance. What's the dance?
Oh, I don't know. He's always do his Ty
Oh, it's
Hilton
Ty.
dance every time. Yeah,
Ty.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that I do want him for that. They're playing the Dolphins and Ravens coming up. I'd be fine with playing against either of those. Honestly, the Dolphins' defense, little overrated. Good secondary, but very splashy secondary. You can still get points on them, right? They'll just get turnovers too, kind of how it usually breaks down. Um,
Yeah, Hunter
yeah,
Renfro had a big game, versus
yeah,
them,
against
right?
them exactly,
Yep.
and we
So,
don't know. We don't know if he has it or not, right? If you want to do the real deep dive and get into the Colts blogger sphere, right? That's how you become a better fantasy player. Or you could listen to podcasters break it down if you really want. But you'd be doing yourself a favor to
right.
figure out what people think of T.Y. Hilton. I'd probably just wait for him to clear. Is he still in IR?
He is. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
waiver him. Wait for everyone to pick up.
Yep.
Maybe put your waiver claim in on a Marlon Mack, who I'm definitely looking to because you can't pass up the opportunity of a good quality starting running back at this point in the season, right? Everyone has a running
Absolutely.
back, so they don't show up. Someone's going to put it on maybe Trey Lance. Someone's probably going to blow it on Kirk Cousins, right? So all these players that are going to help win games soon. Are going to get picked, and then T.Y. Hilton's going to make it through the waivers, I would predict, where I will probably scoop him up. Because you might as well get him a couple weeks early, let him sit. I mean, it all depends on how everyone, your roster, right? So this isn't blanket advice, but I think it would be a good idea to pick him up and just kind of let him marinate for a little bit, maybe see how he looks, and then, hey, you can drop him in a week because it was a waiver wire claim, who cares? Or you could hold him until he plays the Texans and have him win you the week.
I like that. Yeah, like I've always said, you got to use that full roster, and I like what you're doing there too. Kind of looking ahead to the schedule. You can't just look to win a championship. You can't just look at the next week. You have to kind of look further down in advance and kind of
Mm-hmm.
see the matchups. And that might even, we haven't really talked about a lot of different trades, but that might be one thing that you kind of look further ahead and say, okay, well, this guy is doing well now. What can I trade him for because the matchups aren't going to be
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as advantageous later on?
Yeah, and can I trade him to the guy who I face when he's on a bye week? It's just my favorite move ever.
Right.
People see it coming. Good players do anyway. But no, and that's a good. You want to look. You do have to have forward vision to have success in fantasy for sure. Speaking of forward vision, I have oftentimes, and this is not the. We didn't speak about this beforehand, but
Yeah.
I have oftentimes fallen into the Valdez Scantling trap. And
Oh,
I'm
don't
just
do
here to
it.
tell you all, don't step in it.
Yeah.
You can pick them up as a waiver. Do not blow your priority. This happens every single year, and I've been burned a couple years in a row on it. You pick him up, and then like maybe you play him in a couple weeks, and you're desperate. He gets you 6 points or whatever because he doesn't catch the deep pass. Valdez Scantling is a trap, and until he proves otherwise, I'm not touching him because it's just a good way to burn a position for the week. Unless you're desperate. If you're really desperate and you need a big game from someone, you can go Valdez. But I've tried that too, and it's never worked. So.
Yeah. Speaking of that too, I did the Twitter poll about Robert Woods, and I've I've been on the Woods bandwagon, and obviously Stafford prefers Cooper Kupp, and everybody else. So Deshaun Jackson, all that, Van Jefferson, he, other than Cooper Kupp, he spreads it around, and so that's the thing, is what do you think? Is Robert Woods, obviously he's benchable.
Yeah, bench him.
Should I throw him to the waiver wire?
No need to.
Got to keep him.
Who are you going to pick up, right? If he is the worst player on your bench, you might be in like a 10 or 8 player man league, which is totally fine, 10 or 8 team league, and then you can drop him, right? But if you're in a 12, 14 standard size league or a larger league, you don't have 4 or 5 worse players than Robert Woods, or better players than Robert Woods on your bench, right? So just, hold on to him, see what happens. Stafford's slinging it. There's nothing to say that he won't build a rapport. He's played 3 games. That offense is moving the ball. You're going to drop a starting wide receiver on a really good offense that's cooking right now, especially one that just lit up one of the better defenses. Let's not do that. Hold on to him. And if you have to play him, throw him in the flex wide receiver 3. If you have to.
Yeah, and that's the worst thing you can do is really overreact for 3 games. You're right. I have been burned. I've kind of been on the bandwagon, but he is definitely worth a roster spot at this point with Stafford.
Is he getting any targets? I haven't kept up with him very. Is he getting any targets?
He's been getting enough targets, but he hasn't been getting obviously the touchdowns and as much yardage obviously as he had in the past. So
I mean no, absolutely, absolutely. He's got 19 targets over 3 games. He's averaging over 6 targets a game. Hold on to that.
Have the opportunity.
Hold on to that. Absolutely, especially in any sort of half or full PPR format. Definitely hold on to that. Yeah, he's getting more targets than a lot of players that are out producing him right now. And so absolutely, just hold on to him. No problem.
So speaking of trades, we talked last week about doing just one of the worst trades, and we had one that came in.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the guy's name, or the Twitter follower's name?
Solo Cup.
Solo Cup. All right, add Solo Cup coming in with the hotness here. And what's the trade?
So he acquired David Montgomery and Austin Eckler for Justin Fields and Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, see, and that's an argument for commissioner override, even though I'm not a fan of that, but it's trades like that, people.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, obviously, depending on the format, you can be like, okay, Fields has a lot of potential, but not enough with Jonnu Smith. That's definitely one that as a commissioner, I'm going to commission a couple, and I tend to let things go, but you just that's just blatant.
That's egregious is what it is. And how about this? So we are in a there's only one format where I can even see this being conceivable, but now that I even think about it more, so we are in a dynasty superflex, meaning young quarterbacks are the premium position. I still think I reject that now that I think about it, because that's 2 starting here, right? You're sacrificing a whole season, and young running backs too. And running backs are a little more expendable in dynasty and in superflex leagues, but those are still pretty good young running backs.
They are, yeah. I mean, Eckler still has some years left in him, and obviously Montgomery is just starting.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I would barely consider it for Eckler. Montgomery throwing it on top is just oof. Yeah, hopefully
yeah,
they get a new
yeah.
coach in there or a new play caller at least, so Montgomery can start moving the ball. I'll never. It's been I've had this for a while. I will always stray away from a Matt Nagy running back, and this was before even before he was a Bears guy. They just don't produce in fantasy.
Yeah, and that's why it was so interesting. I feel like I had as well, and I'd strayed away from Bears players because of their offense had just been terrible.
Hmm.
But with how well Montgomery did last year, that was kind of like a tease. You're like, okay, well, yeah, he's going to be the guy, and
He's a
he
really good
has,
back. He's a
yeah,
really good running back. It's so
yeah,
sad.
yeah,
They have such good players.
they do.
They,
But they really
oh,
didn't do much on the offensive line, and that makes a difference too. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm coming out, and we're both on the record on this show saying we wanted Fields to start, but now I'm like, I don't know.
you know,
Like, maybe let him live.
that's interesting. I I personally would like to see him start.
Okay, good. And that's coming from a Bears fan. Still want to see him start. Okay, good. Love
Oh,
to hear it.
absolutely. I mean, because here's the thing. I mean, what do you have with Andy Dalton? Or
There's yeah. What are you
you
working towards? Yeah, you're not working
right?
towards anything, are you?
Yeah, I mean, you're working towards like a 6, 7, 8 win team. That's
A
not
middling draft pick. A middling
right.
draft pick is what you're gonna get. Yeah.
Right, and I believe they have given up their first round pick this year, but obviously then you get the second round pick can also be good as well. But
Oh.
I just want to see him develop, and that's really the only way he can be in there. And obviously that's the argument with trusting the play calling in the offense, and is he going to put him in the right position? Um, you know, obviously that's will play out throughout the season, but I just think you need to throw him out there. Obviously you've got on the job training. He's
Yeah.
not gonna
Let him
um,
run.
let
Let
him
him
run.
run. That's what I say.
Yep.
Right? He's gonna get hit anyway. He's gonna get hit if he passes. So what's the difference? So
And
you might as well let him run.
right. And here's the thing that's a great defense. The
Yeah,
Browns.
that's
Yeah.
fair. And they might bring this Vikings offense that has faced three of defenses in the league back down to earth real quick. And that's why I would only start, and I'm picking up Kirk Cousins. I'm probably
Hmm.
going to start him in one league, but be conscious. All right, do not. I'm going back there one more time. Be cautious of the Kirk coaster, because it does bite when it hits that downturn. And this is a very good defensive line, and Kirk Cousins typically has not played well. And we saw what happens to Justin Fields, right? Who's a
Right.
mobile quarterback. So that we will see. And the Vikings offensive line's playing a little better. Their play calling, really, the Vikings and the Bears offensive line are both pretty bad. But one team has a play caller that just decides to like, oh, what players do I have? Oh, what are they good at? Let's do that.
Right.
And the other one. So yeah, no, it's going to be fun to see. It's going to be a fun week. We're going to preview some games coming up. Do we get any decisions on the games we're going to preview coming up later this week?
I I've got a couple that I like to.
I think we had a poll out there, right?
We did. Oh, yeah, I believe and this one will be interesting. I believe the Packers Steelers was number one.
Oh, Packers,
Um,
easy.
the only thing with that is Roethlisberger is just a shell of himself.
He's
So
just cooked. Yeah, he's
he
just
is.
cooked. Yeah, but yeah, we'll talk about the Packers. We'll talk about those are two. Look, fan bases. People want to hear it. They want to hear it.
Absolutely. Cardinals Rams was another one.
Love
top
that.
one.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're going to be previewing some big time games coming up here on Thursday. Anything else we want? Anything else we need to get in here on the waiver wires? Any parting thoughts?
No, I mean, obviously, fill out that roster. Fill it before you go to sleep. Make sure
Yep.
you put your
Yep.
priorities in. If you feel like you're gonna get a Hubbard, go ahead and do it. I mean, you don't want to miss out, right?
Yeah. Win if you could trade waiver priority for one win, it's worth it every time.
Oh,
Right? And
exactly.
you know what I mean? And if it's a player that puts you over the top, worth it over every time. Sure, you miss sometimes, but if you get a win out of it, huge, massive. Trade it every time.
Absolutely.
You got not many games. Got a even shorter season for fantasy than it is for actual football. So you got to stack them wins. All right. Awesome show.
Well,
Awesome show.
Absolutely. A lot of great stuff. So then we'll go ahead and see you on Thursday, right?
Awesome. Yeah, this has been Uneducated and Outdated. I may have got that backwards, but that's okay. I am Uneducated Takes. You can find me on Twitter, on YouTube, and on YouTube on this Outdated Uneducated channel.
And I am NFL Outdated, and look forward to Thursday.
Looking forward to Thursday. All right. Peace out, y'all.